Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's April 19th. This will be our chart lesson tip for the day. And I thought I'd start out by showing you the daily chart. It looks like we did bounce out of here finally. Um, we'll see if we get any follow through here or not. There's a little channel working down. It's the first break of it. We may come back and try a triple test here. We'll have to see. There is quite a bit of stem on that bar right there, as you can see. So I'm not convinced we're going to trade out of here yet. We'll see what happens. But this is typically kind of what I expected. Prices would at least attempt to test this previous resistance. If it acts as support, we may go higher here. Be great if we could get a measured leg up like this one. We'll see. That would give us a target up here at I think around close to 4,900, 48.50 or so. That would be a great target. Take back all of this down move anyway. But that's what I'm looking at. You see it there. I'm not convinced we're trading out of here yet. We're still kind of working sideways here, but that is a nice reversal bounce out of there so far today. Today was a nice rally day. So anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and we'll go through the. Okay, here we are. You can see it's clearly a strong uptrend. I mean, this is a really strong trend working up right here. And it's actually a spike. We actually spiked up, went into this channel, and then just kind of folded over into a flatter channel. So it's a spike in channel, then we had the correction, and then we shot up again. And you can see this darker gray channel. You could clearly see the midline coming into play up through there. This channel doesn't really help you much because we never come back to this channel. The market was too strong. So really the way you had to play this is play the shorter term stuff. So I'm going to remove that bigger one just so it doesn't clutter up the chart and kind of get in the way. But you can clearly see these shorter term, and then we just kind of went sideways here. I didn't continue this out. I think it probably does continue out, and then it just kind of expands a little bit here towards the end. And then we finally broke lower and then reversed and went higher again. But this is a really strong trend up through here. We'll talk about those trades when we get there. And I had to post my mid-morning chart early this morning because I had some personal business I had to take care of today, and so I was out most of the morning. So I posted this really early. At the time, it looked like it might be a range, but it looks like that every morning lately. It's just kind of the way prices look lately. So, but you have to put it on there, and you have to kind of go with what you see. And I think we were already into this spike and channel. It was pretty obvious at that time that, hey, we were probably going higher by the time I posted it. I think I posted this. Actually, I posted this before we broke higher because it was before 9 o'clock because I had to be in my meeting at 9 o'clock. So anyway, spike and channel. And then we worked sideways a little bit before we broke lower and then went higher again. But let's zoom in a little bit. We'll go through the trades real quickly, and we'll wrap this day up. So, okay, 7 o'clock came right in here as we had this little channel working up. We had a close outside. We already got a new high in place. You can see there's a couple of swings to a new high, and then we made a lower high. The problem with this is it's right into the EMA. That's a very nice signal bar. If the next bar would have broke lower, maybe you risk that. But when you get this little inside bar with 2 bar matching low, and this is kind of a doji, I think you got to wait on a reversal then. And of course, we shoot out and come back, and we break higher right here. When prices broke lower, that's a failure, and that's a great place to go short. And you can see how quickly it drops down. All the longs had to exit, all the trap longs had to exit there. And that's a nice little move down. And then actually there's 2 legs down. This is basically a little double top, you could call that. So first entry, second entry, and that's a nice bar. It's a little ways away from the EMA, and it's really pretty much, I think it's pretty close to being 2 measured legs down. I think if you actually measured it from the original high here, it's 2 measured legs down. And you can see that. It's really, really close right there. The close is 2 measured legs down. And so you might buy that second entry long there. I marked it green. It's not a perfect setup, but you're so far away from the EMA, you're probably going to snap back. But prices are trending lower here, and I mean there is this channel, there is a break and a new low too, so there's some reasons to consider that one. It would have been nice if we could have got a break lower and then a reversal here, but we don't get it. The reversal is way up here, too far away, doesn't set up right, and then you get a break, move to a new high, and then you're working lower again. But I don't see any reason to go short above that EMA, and then next thing you know, you're working higher again. So, but notice this low, and then you get a higher low right here above the EMA. So I like going long there. Just try to ride this back up and test this resistance here, and it could go higher, and of course it does. It goes all the way back up and tests the what looks like maybe the range high. You get one more chance here before you reach those highs. Notice there's the first entry, and then it pulls back. It breaks lower there. So when it breaks higher, it's a second entry long. It's right into that high, but there is room to get out before reaching the last closes here. And so you may risk that one. I marked it green. But there's some reasons like that. And you could almost argue this is a triple test, but you still got to go long right into the highs here, and that's right across there, and there's another high right here. When we didn't take on off here, I didn't think it was worth risking. That's just too congested. Yeah, it works, but I can tell you if you take those enough, you'll get burned on them, and I just think there's better trades. So, but we spike up and go into this channel. And it's a little early here, but this is starting to look like anytime you see all these little bitty bars, lots of stems, and very shallow corrections that just keep going and going up a tight trend channel like that, that is a very strong trend. It doesn't look like it, but it is. So if you learn to spot these, pretty much any signal bar that comes back to that trend line that gives you a decent signal bar, you can just about trade it. I marked them green because you really need to know what you're doing here. You really need to understand this and be able to see it, but if you're more advanced enough to do that, take those trades. This is a true second entry here. Notice the first entry, second entry. That's a no-brainer there with this when this is looking like a strong trend. But once you get these other signal bars, every single one of them that gives you a good signal bar that comes back to the trend line is a good trade. And then you can go look at any kind of trend like that, and it pretty much does that every time. So, and of course we get our break, and prices a trip to make a new low, but they don't. I like going long right there. You can clearly see that trend line working up there, and that's just a higher low. Everything's above the EMA, and this is you're most likely going to retest that high on a strong trend like this, and you might even get more of a trend because it looks like there's a flatter channel here. This one's a little too steep, and of course it takes off. And again, you can see the little any decent signal bar that comes back is a good trade even after you get a break there. And I didn't mark any of these because now you've got a new high in place on this yellow channel, so there's always a chance it could sell off, but this thing just keeps going, and this gray channel, darker gray, turns out to be valid. I didn't mark this one, but you could take this trade. It's a first entry, second entry, and you do have a break and new low, because the problem is it's an inside bar. It doesn't make an equal low. But that's one, if you're ever going to take an inside bar, that would be the one that you'd probably take. I didn't mark it. I think it's a little too risky. So I didn't mark it. But anyway, in this one I marked in the wrong spot. This is supposed to be here. But notice you make the new low and you get a first entry and then you get a second entry, and that fails. That's a pretty big move for a second entry, but that's still 2 attempts to go lower. The only reason this one is not blue is because it's below the EMA, but it is right off the key entry point. It's been holding all the way up through here. So with being a failure, if it would have been above, I would have liked it better. I probably would have mark that. Actually, you know what? I didn't mark that wrong. I had it right here. I'm sorry. This one's this is a little advanced, so pay attention here. And this is so advanced I missed it for a second there. What I really meant to show you here. Notice that you got a leg up and you get a first entry, and then you try to go higher, and it makes that 2-bar matching high. So that's a correction. Even though it didn't make a lower low there, it's still a correction. So when it breaks higher, you could treat that like a failure, and definitely a second entry long. First entry, second entry. And your safety stop still has to go below that bar right there, but your trigger is right here when it breaks above that 2-bar matching high. And normally I'd tell you don't take that trade with a little congestion like that, but this is a strong trend, and that trend line's been holding every time, and now you're above the EMA and you get a second entry and a failure. It's a little convoluted, it's a little more advanced, so make sure you see that. And I did mark it green for that reason. And then we come back here. Unfortunately, that's just the first entry and it's below the EMA. If that would have closed above, then maybe you could still argue that, hey, it looks like a failure. It may act like one. And you could still argue that. Let's just put a green one there. And you could still argue it's because notice you get a first entry and then a second entry. But technically, the failure is right here when it breaks above that. So, and then of course you got a new low and you get another failure here, but I didn't mark this one because you got to close outside and you're making lower highs here. There's just too much chance you're coming back down to test this support area across here. You can see I got that a little bit lower than it should be there. So I'm a little leery of that one. I think you got to skip that one. And then you run on up, you get a failed breakout, but this is such a strong trend. Don't try to get cute and go short there. You might have considered going short here because you get a first entry, second entry. There's been strong support there. It's a very bearish bar. I mean, that's one you might consider that one. I'll mark it green, but it's just dangerous going short in a strong trend like this, like that. Especially, you could argue there's a close outside, but it's not that convincing. So you could get another leg up. There's a lower high here, and again, there's probably room to take that, but it looks a little congested. Everything's inside that bar, and it's such a big bar you can get trapped on those, but there is room to scalp out here, so it's another one you could argue it for. There's always some in here you could argue for if you want to be a little more aggressive. But we're working lower here. You can clearly see this yellow channel, and you do get a close outside, but you get a triple test there, and so, and it's also, notice this is a double top and you try to go higher once, twice. It's also a failure. So you might consider that one because it's right at the key entry point and you got plenty of room to scalp out. So I like that one because of the triple test and the failed second entry long, and there's a hidden second entry there too. I'm not going to even go into that. It's a little more advanced, but if you don't understand that, don't worry about it at this point. It's probably too early. Probably it is too early. So you'll just confuse yourself. But then you get two legs up and you get a first entry here. And if you took that, it works, but notice that channel working up there. So just wait. You get a close outside. It tries to go higher. This one just looks too congested, but then you make the failure. So when it breaks lower there, it's a failure. And you can see, and you should get a probably retest of the lows there. And of course, it runs on down. And at that point, these lows are a little bit lower here, as I talked about a minute ago, and that gives you enough room to get out there. And it doesn't matter, it goes much further anyway, but you want at least to have room to get out. And I think if you look at this, I never did put it on here, but I'm pretty sure it's a measured move. Yep, you can see it makes a nice measured move down, and then you're bouncing and going higher. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry, confirms that trend line, nice bullish bar, and boom, it rockets up real quick. And I marked this one with a green. You got room to scalp out there. It's just a first entry, but you could argue there's this is a double bottom, and you get a first entry, then a second entry. It's off that key entry point that's holding. You got enough room to get out. So there's some reasons to consider that one. I marked it, and then it just takes off. And I don't see anything else up here I'd risk that late in the day. You need a correction of some kind, and that comes here, and it's just way too late then. So, yeah, so there it is today. You can clearly see a real strong trend up here. And what it is, it's just real steep, and it just kind of folds over to the yellow and then folds over to the gray, and then you kind of went sideways, and you get a correction, and then you get another leg up. So it's a really strong trend day. We'll see if we get any follow through. That's going to be the key. Do we get any follow through? again, here's your daily chart, and you can see we had that reversal type day there. It closed a little off its high, but we've got the follow through today. But we didn't close on, I mean, there's a lot of stem up there, and that's concerning. You can see that's the midline right there. That dark purple is our midline on this envelope bands. And so that's an important support and resistance area. And the fact we couldn't close on the other side of that concerns me. Doesn't mean we won't just back up and push on tomorrow and get through there. But I got to see it first, and you can see we're still below that, and this is kind of a neutral, but this is overnight, so it's too early to know really what that bar is going to look like tomorrow this time. So we'll see if we get some follow through. I hope we do. No guarantees. We may just be in a little sideways range here that's stuck between these highs and midline and the previous resistance here that's now acting as support. But if this holds a third touch, I'd expect we'd go much higher, just like we did here. Notice you had the first low, then you tested it, and you got that triple test, and then boom, it rocketed out of there. Now, you don't always wait for a triple test. Sometimes, I mean, we could just go higher here. But if you get that triple test and it holds, then there's a good chance we may be going much higher. So we'll see what happens. But there's the look at it. Let me just bring this down a little bit. And you can see we've really just kind of been chopping sideways for a while with mostly down. We had those two legs down, and now we've had one big leg up. Let's see if we can get that next one and make a new high. That would be great if we could. No, just hard to say at this point. We need the daily chart moves much slower, so you just have to be patient and wait and see what it shows you. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next.